Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving deep into an idea that feels a little, well, unexpected, especially when you're thinking about the cutting edge of AI.
Hmm.
We're so often caught up in the tech itself, the algorithms, the data, the sheer processing power.
Right, absolutely.
But what if the key to AI success, the real differentiator, isn't just about the bytes and the chips? What if it's something much, much older?
That's exactly it. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore a really compelling argument
Hmm.
that fundamental philosophical concepts are becoming the absolutely critical factor.
Critical how?
Well, critical not just in AI development, but for its successful implementation, its strategic direction, and ultimately, for delivering actual business value.
Okay. And the source material we're pulling from is a fascinating conversation titled Philosophy Eats AI, published in the MIT Sloan Management Review.
Right. Get ready, because this idea might just give you an aha moment that completely shifts your perspective.
Yeah.
It turns out the thinking behind the AI might matter more than the silicon it runs on.
So let's jump right into the core idea because it's pretty bold.
It is.
The central thesis presented is this. If software ate the world and AI is eating software,
Huh?
then philosophy is what's going to eat AI.
It sounds almost dramatic, doesn't it? But the logic is surprisingly simple when you stop and think about it.
Why philosophy, though?
Because the very foundations of advanced AI,
Yeah.
particularly these large models we interact with, daily things like GPTs, generative pre-trained transformers,
Right.
they're built on concepts that are fundamentally philosophical, terms like training, learning, education.
Mm.
These aren't just technical terms in machine learning. They are concepts philosophers have debated for centuries. Seriously.
And it's not just that AI has implications for philosophy, which, yeah, that's a whole other conversation, especially around ethics.
Right, that too.
But you're saying the AI itself, these advanced models, are a kind of philosophical capability, like a tool for doing philosophy.
Precisely. Or at least they embody philosophical assumptions. They are tools for engaging with and manipulating concepts that philosophers have grappled with forever. Knowledge, meaning, understanding.
It's like we've built machines that can, I don't know, participate in this millennia-old dialogue.
In a way, yes, they operate based on principles related to that dialogue.
And that changes how we see what these models actually do. The source points out that GPTs move beyond the older, maybe legacy ideas of pure logical deduction or traditional reason.
Yes, they absolutely do. The focus shifts dramatically. It's less about building systems that follow strict deductive logic chains, like A leads to B leads to C.
Okay.
Instead, their power comes from their ability to identify patterns, spot similarities, and determine relevance across truly massive data sets.
Right, like when you ask it a question.
Exactly. Think about how you might interact with a GPT. It's not giving you back a logical proof step by step. It's giving you something that feels relevant and coherent based on the patterns it's identified in all the text it was trained on.
Okay, so it's a different way of creating meaning one based on finding connections and context within patterns, rather than just that strict step-by-step logic.
Exactly right. And this fundamentally alters the relationship we see between computation, reason, and patterns. The value dynamic shifts,
How so?
especially as we see the rise of what's called agentic AI.
Agentic AI. Okay, unpack that a bit.
Yeah.
That's the idea of models or systems that aren't just passively responding, right?
Right. They're actually potentially taking actions, making choices, maybe even evaluating things, making trades within some defined environment.
So they're starting to resemble entities with a kind of agency, is that the right word?
Yeah, agency is the term, the ability to act. And the source explores this idea of training not just single agents, but potentially ensembles or swarms of
Yeah.
these agents.
Swarms, like lots of them working together.
Yeah, all working together to solve complex problems or maybe just refine a particular context, make it clearer.
Which leads to that really provocative thought you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
that maybe the ability to simulate reason by skillfully playing with patterns, maybe that's actually enough for many situations.
Or, the source even suggests, maybe even superior to traditional real human reason for a lot of use cases.
Superior. Wow. In what context?
Think about business decisions, market analysis, areas where pattern recognition across vast data might beat slow, step-by-step human logic.
That's striking idea, isn't it? And it connects back to Herb Simon's work, Nobel Prize winner, right?
That's him, his concept of bounded rationality.
Bounded rationality, meaning our thinking is limited.
Exactly. Solomon showed how human decision-making is inherently limited. It's bounded by the information we have, our cognitive limits, time constraints.
So our rationality isn't perfect, it's bounded. Okay.
And the source contrasts that with this idea of bounded patterns. If AI works by finding patterns.
Then what puts the boundaries, the limits around its patterns? What constrains the AI?
Good question. The answer suggests it is purpose. What is the underlying purpose guiding the AI's search for patterns? What is it actually trying to achieve?
Huh.
And you can actually interact with this idea quite directly, which is fascinating. Ask an AI, what is the purpose of patterns? Or flip it, what are the patterns of purpose?
Asking the AI about its own process?
Exactly. This kind of reflexive, almost philosophical questioning can actually inspire how you design and train the models themselves. It gets meta.
But that whole idea of purpose becomes incredibly tricky, though, doesn't it? Especially when different purposes might collide.
Oh, absolutely. It gets messy fast.
We saw a classic, maybe even infamous example of this recently with Google's Gemini AI, right?
A perfect illustration. The source would likely call it teleological confusion.
Teleological confusion, meaning
Meaning having purposes that are at odds with each other or just confused about the ultimate goal. Teleology is the study of purpose.
Got it. So Gemini. The early version generated historical images that were, well, wildly inaccurate.
That's putting it mildly. Depicting diverse groups in contexts where they simply weren't historically present. World War II soldiers, the American founding fathers.
It felt like the AI was trying to serve two masters at once and failing badly.
Exactly. One purpose, let's say maybe a mandate around diversity and inclusion in its outputs.
Which is a valid goal in many contexts.
Absolutely. But it seemed to be prioritized or perhaps just not properly balanced against another critical purpose, historical accuracy.
Right. And the conversation around why this happened was really interesting. Was it just like a lack of rigorous thinking internally?
Did they just not connect the dots? They had these different mandates, maybe diversity understood one way, historical accuracy another, and they just clashed badly when applied to image generation.
Or was it something else?
Well, the source posits another possibility. Maybe it's something closer to indifference. Until the public backlash hit, that is.
Meaning they weren't truly grappling with this conflict of purposes, this teleological confusion, until the negative publicity forced the issue.
It's a possibility raised. What the real internal drivers were is obviously complex.
But regardless of the precise reason, the incident just screams this crucial point.
Yeah.
In the age of generative and predictive AI.
Yeah.
These fundamental questions about corporate culture, technical values, what the organization truly stands for, its real philosophy, conscious or not, become absolutely critical.
You have to know what you're actually trying to optimize these incredibly powerful tools for. It's not just a tech question anymore.
This isn't abstract theory. This is where philosophy directly hits practical strategy and execution.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so let's shift gears then. For executives, for leaders, for anyone trying to deploy AI effectively, what are the actionable insights here? What do we do with this idea that philosophy eats AI?
Right, the practical side. To me, one of the most important and actually surprisingly inexpensive insights from the source is this. Organizations need to map what they believe.
Map what they believe. What does that mean in practice?
Well, right now there's a huge focus, and rightly so, on responsible AI, ethical AI.
Sure, makes sense.
But the source suggests we might be over-indexing on just responsibility mapping, which often focuses mainly on the ethical guardrails, the don'ts.
So it's not enough to just map the risks or the ethical boundaries. You need to go deeper.
Exactly. You need to map the underlying belief system that should guide the AI's entire purpose and function. The positive vision, not just the negative constraints.
Okay.
It means actively mapping out 3 key philosophical concepts for your organization. First, teleology.
Purpose again.
Yep. What is the ultimate purpose?
Yeah.
What is the intended goal or outcome of this AI system, or even this whole business function it supports? Really define it.
Okay, teleology. What's next?
Second, ontology.
Ontology, like being.
Sort of. It's
Yeah.
about how we define and categorize things within our business.
Right.
How do we label customers, products, interactions? What actually constitutes a sale, a lead, a loyal customer in our specific world? What are the essential categories?
So defining our terms, our reality, makes sense. And third,
Third, epistemology.
epistemology.
Knowledge, right? How we know things.
Precisely. What is the nature of the knowledge that informs our categories and our purposes? How do we know what we claim to know about our business and our customers? What counts as valid evidence for saying someone fits a category or that we've achieved a purpose?
Wow. Teleology, ontology, epistemology, that's
Yeah,
pretty fundamental stuff for a business meeting.
it is. But let's make it concrete. Take the Starbucks and Amazon loyalty example from the source.
Okay, yeah, that helps.
How do you define customer loyalty? Is it simply repeat purchases, just a transactional metric, someone buying coffee every day?
That's often how it's measured, right? Frequency, recency.
Often, yes. But is that real loyalty? Or is it something much deeper? Customers who become advocates, who champion the brand, who defend it online, who recommend it actively.
That's a very different thing. Much more valuable, probably.
Exactly. And AI can track those deeper behaviors, that level of evangelism, not just count transactions. It can see the advocacy patterns.
But you can only tell the AI to optimize for that deeper kind of loyalty if you've first mapped it out philosophically.
Ah, okay. Using nosology.
Right. What's a teleology of loyalty for us? Is it just short-term revenue? Or is it building a long-term community of advocates? What's the ontology? How do we categorize advocate behavior? What specific actions define it? Sharing links, defending in forums.
Maybe epistemology.
What data, what signals constitute actual knowledge of that true, deep loyalty versus just someone who lives near our store or finds us convenient?
Without that clear philosophical map.
Your AI will just optimize for the simplest, most obvious metric, like repeat purchases, which might not be what you truly value or need. It optimizes for the wrong thing.
Okay, that really connects it. And this ties directly into measurement and metrics then. We all know Peter Drucker's line, you manage what you measure.
The classic.
Yeah.
But AI changes the game here, doesn't it?
How so?
Drucker said that back when you could only measure a tiny sliver of business activity, focusing intensely on that sliver could warp your perspective on the whole business.
Right.
AI dramatically increases the sheer volume and complexity of business activity you can measure. You can create tailored metrics for almost anything now. That's incredibly powerful for driving performance, no doubt.
But it's more than just more metrics, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It also broadens the very definition of what business even means or what contributes to value. It's no longer just revenue and profit margins, the easy stuff to count.
It's things like customer experience, supplier relationships, employee engagement.
Exactly. All of these things, which were previously sort of soft or hard to quantify, can now potentially be measured and optimized using this philosophical lens. What's the purpose? How do we categorize it? How do we know it?
So AI isn't just automating old processes with old metrics?
No. It's disrupting and potentially redefining the entire vocabulary of value creation in an organization. You have to be intentional about what value means to you, to your company, and then map it using these philosophical tools.
Okay, this is huge. Which brings us to another fascinating idea the source presents. This human-machine virtuous cycle.
Ah, yes, the feedback loop.
The idea that you learn to prompt the AI and you prompt the AI to learn. Can you expand on that?
It's designed for mutual growth, really. As a human, you get better at articulating what you need from the AI, at structuring your questions, your prompts. That skill improves.
And better prompts lead to?
Better results from the AI, usually. But it also works the other way. As the AI processes your prompts and the data, it gets better at understanding nuances, identifying patterns you might miss, and providing relevant information.
Which in turn helps me learn more effectively from the AI.
Exactly. It's a cycle. You learn, it learns. You learn more, it learns more.
And the source suggests you can even look at metrics for this cycle itself, like measure the learning.
Sort of. If the humans in your organization aren't learning and adapting, aren't getting better at prompting or using the insights, maybe as fast as the AI models are technically improving.
Then maybe there's an imbalance, a problem with human capital development or adoption.
Could be. Or conversely, if your AI models aren't learning and updating efficiently, maybe they seem stuck while your people are rapidly gaining new insights about the market.
Then your ML operations might need tuning, your data pipelines, your model updates.
Potentially, yes. The goal is a dynamic, virtuous cycle where both machine learning and human learning accelerate each other, not one outpacing the other wildly.
So this isn't just about using AI to make better decisions based on current thinking.
No, it's deeper.
It's about fundamentally rethinking how thinking itself happens within the company. Is that fair?
That's a great way to put it. Leaders can effectively think out loud with an LLM or an agentic AI.
Think out loud.
Yeah, use it as a kind of externalized cognitive partner. Bounce ideas off it. Ask it to critique a plan. Generate alternative scenarios. It augments their own capacity for analysis and idea generation in ways that just weren't possible before.
And as your purpose, your categories, your knowledge, those allogies we talked about become clearer through this interactive process.
Then you're in a much better position to make smarter decisions about that critical trade-off we all face with AI.
Which is?
What do you automate make completely mindless, just hand it off to the machines because it's routine and well-defined, versus what do you augment?
Where you keep humans in the loop,
Yeah.
enhancing their capabilities, leveraging their judgment alongside the AI's power.
Exactly. And making that automate versus augment decision, well, at its heart, requires thinking philosophically.
How so?
It requires thinking about the difference between agents designed primarily to think or simulate thinking and generate insights, versus agents designed merely to perform tasks efficiently. They aren't the same.
Right. Different purposes require different approaches.
Precisely.
Ultimately, then, the source argues that generative AI is really the key space, maybe the battleground, where competing, sometimes conflicting philosophies of value creation and customer experience are playing out right now.
It's where these abstract ideas hit the real world, often with very public results, like the Gemini example.
And it leaves us with this really important question, maybe a challenging one. Can AI actually help people who might be, let's say, less inclined to think rigorously? Can it help them become more rigorous in their thinking?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Does the tool elevate the user, or does it just make sloppy thinking faster?
The analogy used in the source is quite vivid. It compares using AI to two different approaches to weight loss.
Ah, yes, the Ozempic versus Weight Watchers comparison.
Explain that.
Is using AI like taking a drug, something relatively easy that gives you a desired result without fundamental change, like Ozempic potentially lowering weight with injections, or is it like committing to a structured diet and lifestyle change program, which requires real fundamental effort,
Hmm.
learning new habits, maybe even rewiring how you think about food, like Weight Watchers?
One seems easier, but maybe less sustainable or deep. The other requires more effort, but potentially leads to real change.
That's the tension. And the outcome, for individuals and for whole organizations, likely depends on whether leaders truly take this need for rigorous philosophical thinking seriously when they deploy AI.
Or if they're primarily focused on just, optimizing superficial metrics share price this quarter, short-term efficiency gains, the easy stuff.
Exactly. Are they using AI to think better or just to get faster answers without deeper understanding?
So the big takeaway here, the core message for everyone listening really is, philosophy isn't just for dusty lecture halls or academic journals anymore.
Not at all.
It's a practical, essential, strategic approach that is becoming absolutely critical for actually driving meaningful, sustainable business value with AI.
Couldn't have had it better myself. This deep dive was designed for you, the listener, to help you cut through some of the tech hype and understand the underlying concepts, the deeper currents that truly matter in leveraging AI effectively.
And it leaves us with that powerful, provocative question posed in the original source. Something for you to really consider as you navigate this landscape in your own work, your own organization.
Yeah.
What philosophical questions are you asking before implementing AI? Are you asking about purpose, about categories, about knowledge?
It's a crucial starting point, and for those who want to explore these ideas in even more detail, dig deeper into the arguments,
Yeah.
would highly recommend finding the original conversation. It's titled Philosophy Eats AI, and you can find it on the MIT Sloan Management Review website. It's well worth the read.